Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Juan Londoño and today's topic is the importance of art and photography in the future. Once again, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate your time, I really do. Please take this moment to like the video down below and subscribe if you haven't already. Now moving on to the topic. If you look at the world about 1,000 years ago, we realize that most people worked on their feet and with their hands. It was very common, if we were all living back then, for example, for me, if I was a leather worker and I needed some furniture, I would go over to a carpenter's house and say, look, I need a dining room table. You know, what can you use from me that we can barter exchange? And the carpenter might tell me, well, you know what, I don't have a very big family, but we definitely need some leather hats, we need some leather belts, and we need some leather shoes. And if you could put all that together for us, I would gladly make you a dining room set for your large family for 8 people, and we'll do it that way. Now, as math and science became more important and more popular, it paved the way for other fields. This included scientists, mathematicians, economists, politicians, and many others. Even art moved from caves and walls to interiors, to a lot more comfortable interiors. Society in general progressed, and both the left and right side of our brains were hard at work. You might say that during those times, unless you were out in the field or needed to be outdoors, many people were working indoors, kind of like we are today, working from home. You know, I could make my leather products 1,000 years ago, I could make them indoors. I could make anything with fire, anything with steel. I could probably do much of that indoors. And depending on where you lived and how the climate was, many of it was indoors. Fast forward 1,000 years, and here we are, still working mostly indoors. But the cool difference is that now jobs have become more technical, right? There's more technology involved. So we've moved from using our hands more, and there are still people that do that, but the majority of us don't really use our hands a lot. We spend time on a computer or writing, something to that nature. Our jobs have gone from being mostly right brain, creative jobs, to left brain, technical and logical jobs. And the sad part, well, many of the jobs that require some kind of human activity are being automated, even now as you and I enjoy this video together. So what will the next 10 or 20 years look like? For starters, if you're familiar with technology trends and the news lately, you've heard the terms machine learning and artificial intelligence. And basically, machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. And this is where we basically teach computers, and that's the goal, is to teach computers to think for themselves. Now, we may not be there yet entirely. We're on our way. But we have certainly taught computers to learn patterns, to correct certain outcomes that they've come up with, basically to learn. It's not good enough that everything that can be automated will be automated. Now we're asking this whole automation process and these machines to be able to do their own thinking. We are asking them to learn and improve themselves. And as you know, these are jobs and tasks that have been reserved for the human race, until now. If you've been keeping up with Elon Musk, basically the creator of the Tesla Motor Company, there's a YouTube video out there, and you can probably find it in many places. But he warns us all that we're moving into this area of artificial intelligence way too fast. And so what he's trying to say is there are many, many things to think about, not just in the programming languages and the machines that we're using and how we're programming them. He wasn't even addressing that part, and that's a very important part as well. He's addressing what's going to happen when every job is automated. What happens to people? Large corporations are mainly interested in profits, and faster and smarter robots will get us there. They'll help these companies yield these results. And I get it, really, I do. But what they're doing is ignoring all of the negative side effects of going to AI so quickly. We are basically building these machines at alarming rates. These machines that do their own thinking and learning. And these computers are being programmed by people that have both conscious and unconscious biases. Not to mention, who knows what other personality disorders. I mean, really, programmers are human too, just like you and I. So what's happening now is that many families are seeing this need for technology and software programmers, and they're pushing their kids into these technical fields. I get that too. I mean, what parent wouldn't want their kids to move into a field that's growing so they can have a prosperous life and a prosperous career, right? But if we continue down this road, we're going to take society in general and push them into a more technical role. So we're going to push them into the left side of the brain and using the left side of the brain more, which is the logic, right? The logic and math. And we're pushing everybody away from the creative side, which is the right side of the brain. And so we're getting them away from music, art, that type of creative thinking. So fast forward another 10 or 20 years, and we may become, or we may find ourselves, a society of complete techies that really looks down upon, other fields like art and music and entertainment. Now, I don't know if you follow history in general, but I'm not going to mention the countries. That's irrelevant. It's a few of them. But there are countries that have been through that already, that were, glorifying technology. And for many, many years, the people were getting pushed, and the kids were being, molded into math and science and programming. And these societies, what ended up happening was just extremely high suicide rates. They had no art, they had no music to fall back on, to relax with. Since then, many of them have come around and realized the importance, and have then not only allowed, kids to do this and adults to do this, but they've pushed people into the more creative fields. That's why I believe that any of us that possess any creative skills, whether it's creating these YouTube videos, which requires some creative skill, art, music, sculpture, art includes all that, right? Anything, painting, photography. Any of us that possess any of this really have an obligation to make sure that we don't deter our kids from following their creative dreams. As a matter of fact, like these countries did in the past, we need to make sure that if our kids don't have a creative outlet, that they find one, that they get in touch with some kind of a hobby that involves some kind of creativity, and just not technical hobbies like programming and solving math puzzles and playing chess. Those are awesome too. But you want to kind of open up that right side of the brain for them, so that school is developing the left side of the brain with the math and science, and we need to help them with that as well. But then we need to help them develop that other side, because life is all about balance, yin and yang. As jobs become more technical, we're going to be more reliant on our computers, and we're going to be maybe confined more to our own homes and our own desks. Even if we do end up going out to work, it's going to be a desk, right? So levels of anxiety and stress over the next probably decade or two are going to start rising if we push everybody in that direction and we don't give them a creative outlet. So not only will art and music become critically important, and by art I include entertainment in there as well, not only will they become critically important, so will psychology and psychiatry. You can imagine with people's stress levels going through the roof, many people don't have anybody to speak with, and even if you do have somebody to speak with, it's usually not somebody with that kind of background that can guide you. So psychology and psychiatry, I can see those fields picking up a little momentum in the future. There are already talks about possibly in the next 20 to 30 years, 40, even 50% of the population being unemployed because our jobs are going to be completely automated. Now, when I say automated, don't think of a robot walking through a house. That's the movie stuff. A lot of the stuff that's going to be automated is in computers, right? So the way that applications give you information so that you can look at it and make a decision, a lot of that will be done by the computers. So not only are the computers going to be gathering information through sensors and cameras, But then the computers are going to be able to analyze it and make decisions for us. A lot of that is going to be automated. So many jobs that require people to look at data, to look at, results, all that is going to go away. Jobs that require us to listen to a person and make something for them, like whether it's a license or a passport, a lot of that is going to be automated, and a lot of that is going to take care of itself. And the list, by the way, goes on and on and on of the jobs that can be easily automated. All of the fast food franchises will probably only need one person in the franchise to take care in case any machine jams or has a problem, right? Otherwise, your order will be automated through voice or through a pad that you put in or through your own phone at home. And you can go pick it up or it will be delivered, and it's going to be made automatically by, by some kind of a machine, just like newspapers are made, automatically. And so many products that we use today are made by machines. So what's going to happen if 40 to 50% of the population of our country becomes unemployed? Well, let's face it. Programming computers is not for everybody. Not everybody wants to do that. Not to mention that if you go into that field, you may be going towards your own demise, because the goal of a good developer or software programmer in the future will be to create a program in a computer that is so advanced that it will teach the computer to learn and maybe to program itself. Now, I'm talking kind of the future here, but that's the direction we're headed in. So these developers or coders or hackers or software developers or computer programmers, whatever name you give them, their job is going to be basically to work themselves out of a job. And once all these people are displaced because their jobs have become automated, the government's going to have to, somebody, I'm saying the government because I don't know the answer to this, right? We're not there yet. Somebody's going to have to figure out how these people are going to continue to get paid for sitting home and doing nothing. Elon Musk, in his interview that we were talking about earlier, said something about, even if people are getting paid to do nothing, they're sitting at home, they're still doing nothing. And many people tie their usefulness or their sense of being to their job. I'm not saying that's right, but that's what probably 80% of the population does. They tie their sense of being to their job. I know, for example, when I started working, I was kind of new in New York, working technology. I was working with a bunch of people, and one of the guys I worked with was a wonderful older gentleman. He was getting ready to retire. And when he retired, I know we all looked at each other and said, what's he going to do? He has no hobbies. Like, he couldn't wait to get in the morning and work. He got in like at 6:30. By 7, he had drank his coffee and read the paper. And he was working. He worked till like 4 o'clock, and he went home happy every day because he did a wonderful job. And when he retired after like 30 years of working in that company, we all were kind of worried that, because there's a statistic, I don't know if you know this, that says that most people die within 2 years of retirement because they have nothing to do. And basically, that's what happened to this really wonderful person. He retired, and within 2 years, he started having problems, and he passed away. So you can imagine 40, 50% of the population sitting at home doing nothing. They have no sense of worth because they're getting paid to do nothing. What's going to happen? You can see already that rates of depression and suicide are going to be through the roof. So giving people a creative outlet like music and art will at least, at a minimum, at a bare minimum, keep them entertained. As a best case, they'll be able to pursue a career in some kind of art or music and make a living from it, since everything else is going to be automated. If you enjoy painting, sculpting, music, art, and any type of entertainment, stick with it. This is a critical time I think we're reaching. Many people are getting so bogged down with work and with their family life and all of that is important, by the way. I'm not telling you to give that up. But we need to find a little time every day, at least every couple days, to be creative, to create something, to write. If you're into writing, start writing poems, start writing short stories, write a movie, write a book, write about something that you know, create videos, start creating YouTube videos. If you've always wondered what it's like to sculpt, get into it, see what happens. You might enjoy it. Painting, drawing, writing your own music. Even if it's not the lyrics, maybe if you play around or putz around with an instrument, maybe you can create some tunes and sell them to a musician that has lyrics to tie them to. Whatever it is, just do it. Do more of it. Even the martial arts, they're a creative field too. And boy, what an outlet. And what a beautiful thing that is. You know, I know China had gotten away from the martial arts, from their kung fu for a while. People were getting pushed into, you know, schooling and careers, and there was so much going on in China that finally China woke up one day and said, wait a minute, this is part of our history, our culture. And they started ramping up schools again to teach kung fu on a huge, enormous, you know, level. So there are schools that teach thousands of kids at a time because it's important to them. It's important to society. They realize not only is it important for their history and their culture, it's important for people to have an outlet, some kind of creative and physical outlet. So talking about physical outlet, it's also going to be important that we run, that we sweat a little, that we have some kind of cardio machine, whether it's an elliptical or a treadmill, and maybe going to the gym's not a bad idea. Something that lets us vent too, because that anxiety starts to build up, right? But the bottom line of this video is basically we're headed into a more technical area as a whole. And many of our jobs are going to be automated. There are already talks about doctors being automated because you can give a computer, you know, your symptoms, and it can do a bunch of analyses and then ask a few questions and come up with the answer. And by the way, this was not only programmed by a computer programmer, there had to be a doctor sitting next to them so that the doctor can give all of their insight to this computer so the computer would know how to analyze a patient. Now, are there going to be issues with that? Maybe. Maybe it's going to take a few years to iron out the kinks. Maybe some people are going to have some, you know, injuries or deaths coming out of this, right? Prescribe the wrong medication or the wrong procedure. I can see that happening, just like there already have been casualties with self-driving cars. Everything we start, everything we experiment with, everything we'd like to dive into as a society is going to be experimental at first and is going to take some, you know, some hits and misses. It's going to have pros and cons, and this is one of those areas. If you add to it the conscious and unconscious biases, conscious biases are just flat out racism and things that we have in our mind about different groups of people and whether they're lazy or they're, you know, whatever, or they're arrogant or they're noisy or they're obnoxious. And then there's the unconscious bias that we have, and we all have unconscious biases. We may not have, all of us have conscious biases, but I believe all of us have unconscious biases, and there are books written on this, right? Where we don't realize that we're favoring one group of people over another, but we just do it unconsciously. So add to that programmers of these computers have these biases, and they're programming these computers to learn and think kind of like they are with these biases. You're programming computers with these biases. So you can see, as a conclusion, that art, music, entertainment in general is going to be very important in the future. And that's the whole premise of this video, is whatever you're doing that's creative, keep it up. If you're doing magic, for my friend Carlos, if you're doing music, if you're doing whatever it is, if you like to dance, go sweat it out. You know, keep doing that, and most importantly, teach it. You got to pass it on. Pass it down. Pass it up. Pass it sideways. It doesn't matter which way you pass it. But you got to pass it on. You got to pass that skill that you possess, whether it is the martial arts or whatever you're doing. Teach it to your kids, teach it to your nephews, teach it to kids at a school. If you're a teacher, make sure you bring these topics up. We're responsible for making sure that our kids have some outlet, some creative outlet that'll keep them safe, that'll keep them thinking, that'll keep them engaged in the future. Don't let any of this frighten you or depress you. That wasn't the point. The point is that we're all aware of the way that society is headed in, and that we kind of know what we're going to do about it. Basically, keep it in the back of your mind and just be prepared for it. Push the arts and always support them. If you have a friend that's doing an exhibit, if you have a friend that puts up a web page and wants people to check it out, take their link and pass it on to everybody you know, right? Visit the exhibit that your friend is doing. If you have a friend that wrote their first song or album and is doing a local concert, go support them. Get a bunch of people from work, from school, wherever you are, and go support them. It's important. We have to keep this moving. So is art photography, music, entertainment going to be important in the future? Oh, yes it is. You can bet your money on that. So do whatever you can to keep it moving, and I will see you in the next video. From the bottom of my heart, as always, I love you guys. Please take care of yourselves. We didn't do a water break today, but here's my water. Drink plenty of it, get rest, take your vitamins, take care of yourselves, and we'll catch up later. In the meantime, ciao for now.